Dr. Gottlieb, what would be the next sign? I mean, you said 5,000 would be your concerning point. You say continue to build. What are we talking, 7,500 cases? What is the next sign where you say, okay, this is the next threshold?
Well, continued growth. I mean, continued growth in cases that we're turning over. So you start to see 500, 1,000 new cases a day in states like California, Texas, Florida. Remember, coming off a weekend, the totals usually fall and they rise going into the week. There's sort of a cyclical trend every week to the reporting of cases and also the reporting of hospitalizations because of some delays in reporting over the weekend. And so you would expect that if the case counts are where they are right now, they're going to continue to build going into the end of the week. Then they'll come down over the weekend and go back up again. It's really a sawtooth pattern every week. So this is an indication that these states may have exponential growth underway and a lot of community spread. It's going to be hard to extinguish that. Now, those states are going to have to make decisions to close congregate settings like bars before hospitals make decisions to close elective procedures. But if the hospitals are heading towards a decision to suspend elective procedures again, I suspect that they're actively discussing that right now. The states are going to be forced to take measures ahead of that to try to close down social settings, congregate settings where they think this is spreading. And once again, they haven't done contact tracing work that is precise enough to know for sure where this is spreading, but they know that a lot of people who are coming in infected are reporting that they were in bars. So they're surmising that those are the settings where a lot of the spread's going on.
Hey, Scott, is there any chance that what we're going to see, and I know we're seeing these numbers go up and we're also seeing hospitalization rates go up as well, but that we're going to see that a larger portion of the population or a larger group is on the younger side? And so when it comes to deaths and when we start to look at the morbidity rate relative to hospitalizations, relative to the total testing number, that it's going to look better? I ask, again, in part because then I think we're going to get into that whole behavioral science question we've talked about, which is what people take away from some of these numbers.
Yeah, I think susceptibility is declining for a host of reasons. One, the demographic that's getting infected is different this time. It is younger for now. But also we're doing a better job of treating people when they get hospitalized, so we're going to preserve more life. There's no question about that, that doctors have gotten a lot more astute about how to treat COVID. So we will see death rates come down, although we're not really seeing that right now. That's not why the total number of deaths is falling. The total number of deaths is falling because the total infection burden in the country is a lot lower now than it was in April. Even though the numbers look the same, we're going to eclipse the totals in April. So we'll eclipse 37,000 diagnosed infections a day. But in April, we were only diagnosing 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 infections. Those 37,000 infections represented probably 500,000 infections at the peak. Right now, we're probably diagnosing 1 in 5 to 1 in 10. So the 37,000 infections that we might diagnose sometime next week really only represent probably 200,000 total infections. So the overall disease burden is down. Younger people are getting infected. We're preserving more life. But the reality is that if right now the demographic that's getting infected is a lot of younger people, with this level of infection in states like Texas and California, Arizona, Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, it's not going to stay that way. It's going to seep into other demographics because there's a lot of infected people around. So they have to be worried. They can't just say, well, it's only 20 and 30-year-olds. We'll be able to, they'll weather through it. It's not going to be that bad. As much as the 60 and 70-year-olds are protecting themselves right now, it's not going to be able to stay that way with this level of infection. So that's why you have to be worried.
Dr. Gottlieb, just going back to what you said in terms of states potentially not wanting visitors who have come from another state or gone through a particular airport, I wonder just how our air travel system has changed over the years, where it's now much more of a hub and spokes sort of setup, where it's hard to get to a lot of places that aren't major hubs unless you fly through someplace else. Would that have to change? I mean, if you are coming from a state that's not infected, going to a state that doesn't have high infection rates, if you have to stop in Chicago or stop in Hartsfield in Atlanta or fly through another place, would you then be considered kind of somebody who's passed through a hot zone if you were just in the airport?
Potentially. I mean, there's not going to be easy ways to administer this. I just think you've already seen the behavior. You saw DeSantis impose restrictions on New Yorkers coming back to Florida. I think you're going to see reciprocal types of measures taken by the governors that have managed to take their infection rates all the way down, but at a cost. Why would New York and New Jersey and Connecticut want to readily import infections from other states when they had epidemics? They had restrictions on their own citizens. So I think you're going to see those kinds of restrictions go up pretty soon. You're already seeing measures like New York pulling back its sports teams from Florida. The NBA's obviously got to make a decision about playing in Orlando right now, because even if they can protect their players, do they want to play against the backdrop of an epidemic down there? And we'll have to see which way Florida goes. If Florida ends up being the epicenter, there's signs it might end up being, similar to Texas and California. But I think you're going to see some of those restrictions get put into place intrastate here in the United States. Yeah. It'll be temporary, so I don't think that these things are going to be, permanent, that they're going to sort of permanently change flows of travel around the country. Yeah. The other question is, what do we do about travelers from Europe? Why would we restrict them at this point?